It's more than 40 years since one of Australia's worst naval disasters, the collision between HMAS Melbourne and an American warship, the USS Frank E. The training accident killed 74 American sailors. It also ruined the career of a promising Australian Navy captain. John Stevenson was court-martialled, even though it was accepted widely then that as captain of HMAS Melbourne, he'd done nothing wrong. Now the Australian government has admitted for the first time that he was treated unfairly. Hayden Cooper reports.
The aircraft carrier Melbourne, and in tonight's news, pictures received by satellite of the damage suffered in yesterday's collision.
June the 3rd, 1969, a devastating collision rocks the dark waters of the South China Sea. The stricken USS Frank E. is cut in two and 74 Americans perish. Australia's HMAS Melbourne is severely damaged.
The Melbourne remained in the area to help with the search and rescue operation until all hope for the 72 missing Americans was abandoned.
Its captain is the World War II and Korean War veteran, John Stevenson.
And what's the future of Melbourne now, sir?
She'll be repaired as quickly as possible and be back to sea and join the fleet.
Sir, is Melbourne a jinxed ship?
She's a very lucky ship.
You saw it everywhere.
43 years later, the memory is vivid. At 91, John Stevenson still easily recalls the terrifying moment before the collision, when the crew of the American ship turned in the wrong direction.
He panicked and put his wheel on the wrong way and spun back under our bows. And we cut him in half. And the bow part went down our port side and turned over and sank almost immediately, taking most of the people with it.
Whose fault was it?
It was the incredible incompetence of the Evans crew, particularly the captain. He knew when we were going to fly aircraft, he knew we'd be calling him in when we did, and he stayed in his bed. And the people that he had on the bridge were completely untrained.
It was just the beginning of a saga that destroyed the Australian's career. John Stevenson was court-martialled, and although he was acquitted, he was demoted and then resigned. To this day, he views himself as a scapegoat.
That was done to satisfy the Americans. They didn't really want to be found to blame totally. They had to get some blame pushed onto us. And our people accepted that.
Australia also accepted an American as chairman of the joint inquiry that followed, the same man who had ultimate command of the USS Frank E. The inquiry found both ships at fault and said Captain Stevenson should have taken evasive action sooner. Ever since, the captain and his family have been fighting to set the record straight.
An incredible injustice. You know, a frustration for me was that no one recognised it, and it wouldn't matter how many people I spoke to. They would say, it's a terrible injustice. And I kept thinking, well, why isn't the government making a better acknowledgement of this? Why hasn't the Navy come out with a proper apology?
Now, 4 decades on, that time has come.
He was treated unfairly. The court-martial in particular was unfair, and viewing with the advantage of a modern-day prism, he shouldn't have been accorded the treatment that he was.
In Stephen Smith, the captain's family has found a Defence Minister willing to rewrite the past. He's sent a letter to the family. It stops short of apologising, but acknowledges the poor treatment dealt out by the government and Navy of the time.
If these facts were to be repeated today, I don't believe that in comparable circumstances anyone would be court-martialled. But secondly, the choice of the US Admiral King to chair the joint inquiry was also a decision which, in my view, would not be made today.
So what does this mean to you now? Is this something you will treasure?
Very much so.
For the 91-year-old, it's a breakthrough he barely thought was possible.
Oh, it's a great surprise and great relief and a real sense of happiness. Joined the Navy in 1935.
At his home in the New South Wales Southern Highlands, Captain John Stevenson's walls reveal a lifetime of achievement. He's mixed with royalty,
With King George VI,
met presidents,
President Eisenhower in America.
and was even on hand in Tokyo Bay for the Japanese surrender. But there's one constant, his wife, Joanne. For decades, she fought for this result, even writing a book about the collision. But she's not here to witness the moment. Joanne Stevenson died earlier this year, so this breakthrough is bittersweet.
Tough. Not good.
But she would be as happy as you are to get this letter from the Minister.
Oh yes, she would have been very happy.
I think she'd be thinking, at last, Mum was the one that fought terribly hard to make sure that the story got out. I guess the sad thing is that Mum isn't here to see what's ultimately happened, but I'm sure she's looking down from upstairs and saying good on you.
Justice delayed but happily not denied. Hayden Cooper with that report.